and I'm proud to have the honor to introduce her this morning. Congressman Tsongas has served the cities of the Merrimack and Neshoba Valleys in the United States House of Representatives since 2007. Her work includes staunch support of our active military and veterans, securing modern resources such as better, safer body armor and new measures to prevent military sexual assault. She serves on the Natural Resources Committee, where her work includes supporting the success of the first national urban park of its kind right here in Lowell. The oldest of 4 sisters and the mother of 3 daughters, Congressman Tsongas has dedicated her life to public service. Please join me in welcoming NikiTsongas.
Good morning, everybody. How are you all? And you're awake? Have you been awake for a long time? Good, good, good. That's because you're young. So it's great to be here with so many wonderful young women who have an interest in science, technology, engineering, and math. And you happen to be in a company, Red Hat, that I visited several years ago, where I was so impressed with the kind of innovation going on here and the way in which this company had organized itself in order to constantly challenge its employees to think. And I often tell the story of being, I think, in this room over there. There is a table that it's a table that a good number of people can sit at, and it's a whiteboard. And it's a whiteboard so that as people come down here to have their whatever their meal they're going to have, as they're talking and they're thinking, they can write down their ideas. And I imagine that is what you are going to be doing here today. And that is really the great opportunity presented in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math. And I see so many companies across this district that are invested in, come out of one of those fields. And are creating the ideas and the products of the future, but they're also creating great jobs. Jobs that really can help you support a family and do it in a way that is comfortable, challenging, and in which you are making a contribution at all times to your country. But we need women in it. Too often I see very few women in those companies. And so what this is about today, those of you who have expressed an interest, is in exciting you to think about it as being part of your adulthood, part of your future, so that as you're going through school, through high school, making your way into college, if that's an ambition you have, that you always keep in mind the opportunities to make a difference that exist in these fields. So at this point, only about 25% of the workforce in science, technology, and engineering math is women. And that is not enough. And yet, very recently, I am on the Armed Services Committee. It's a committee I sought out when I was elected to Congress because there really were not a lot of women on it. And I felt it was important that women be represented on that committee. And as I've been there now 7+ years, there are more women on it. But yes, 2 days ago, I had a meeting with a general. She was a 4-star general, and she was in charge of the Air Force's decision-making around what kind of new products to invest in. So if we need a new plane, because our planes are aging and some of the countries in this world are outsmarting us, her job is to meet that challenge and to come up with, working within the Air Force, to come up with and make a decision as to what kind of plane do we need next so that we can best protect this country. That's just one example of the kind of thing that she has to think about. She's retiring after 35 years. She was a leader in the Air Force, one of very few women generals, and she's being replaced by another woman. So these are 2 women who are really leading the way for our country in a field that has historically been dominated. The military itself is only about 14% female. It's due to become about 25% female. But within the military, she has risen up through the ranks because she is better than anybody at doing the job that needs to be done. And so I have experienced something similar. When I was your age and I was going to high school in Tokyo, Japan, I could not have imagined, I did not see any women in Congress. I don't know that I was really actually paying a lot of attention to Congress. But the reality is, were I to pay attention, there would have been virtually no women in Congress. That was also true in the field of law. Very few women in the legal field. It was very true in the field of medicine. Very few women in the field of medicine. And in business, not a lot of women going to business school so that they could then run business, create businesses and run them. But much has changed in the intervening time. So I made a decision to go to law school when I was about 23 years old. And I had just married my husband and come to live in Lowell, Massachusetts. And I applied to a number of law schools and ended up going to Boston University Law School. It had about a quarter of its class were women at that time. This is in 1970. I went for a year and a half, left for a whole host of reasons, and went back in 1984. When I went back in 1984, it was 50% women. When I started in 1970, BU was one of very few schools that was actually recruiting women to go to law school. By the time I went back in 84, BU was, as I said, a half women, and virtually every other law school in the country was aggressively recruiting women. So the field of science, technology, and engineering math has lagged. It has actually really lagged in this area, and that's why it's so important that you are here. And as for Congress, back then, 50 years ago when I graduated from, I hate to tell you how old I am, when I graduated from high school, I could not have imagined that I would be in Congress today. And yet 7 years ago when this seat opened up, and our Chancellor Meehan, who was my predecessor in this office, Congressman Meehan, went off to be the Chancellor at UMass Lowell. I had by then graduated from law school, had migrated into administration at Middlesex Community College, was a dean there, and made a quick decision that I was going to run for Congress because I was motivated by the fact that it had been 25 years since Massachusetts elected a woman to Congress. And Congress represents all of the people. And yet, having as few women as it did, and Massachusetts having waited so long to elect a woman to Congress, when I ran, only 3 other women had been elected to Congress from Massachusetts, I felt it was important to run. And fortunately, I did win. But it was not an easy thing. It was as challenging as it could be. And yet, having won, it has given me an opportunity to do things I could never have done otherwise in behalf of all of this country, but also in behalf of women. And one of the examples of that is, as a member of the Armed Services Committee, I asked a question at a hearing on body armor. Body armor, if any of you have parents who've served in the military, who've fought in Iraq or Afghanistan, they have had to wear body armor. Heavy, heavy stuff that does a great job of protecting people, but is often too heavy and causes injury just by wearing it. So I had an interest in it, and we were really challenging the services to develop lighter materials. Again, a field that involves engineering, plastics engineering, or whatever it may be, in order to have a product that is both light but also prevents injury, so stops a bullet or does whatever has to be done. In a hearing, though, I also asked a question, and this was off the top of my head. Have you ever developed body armor for women? Now, as I said, the military is 14% female. It's due to become 25% female by 2025, and women are in harm's way. They may not be in all combat positions, but often they're the ones driving the truck that's going through very challenging environments or doing other things that put them in harm's way on a daily basis. So they need to wear body armor as well. And yet the services had never developed body armor for women. So that year, as a member of Congress, I was able to put language into that year's bill to task the services with developing body armor for women. And a year later, I was trying the stuff on. And one of the people told me, one of the people who'd helped develop it told me that as part of developing body armor that was suited to women, they had to address the shoulder. A woman's shoulder is not as broad as a man's. wearing a man's body armor, a woman who had to defend herself shooting a rifle or whatever could not have raised her arm adequately to shoot and fire in a way that she needed to do it in order to best protect herself. By changing and redesigning the body armor to better suit a woman's body, she could now protect herself and raise her arm the way she needed to shoot that rifle or to do whatever she needed to do. So it was pretty astonishing, actually, if you ask me, that this had not been thought about in the course of developing body armor. But it was science and technology and engineering and math that first allowed body armor to be created in the first place that was adequately protective, but also then allowed them to take it to another step in which they rethought the design of the body armor so that women could safely wear it and safely defend themselves. So this is just one example of an opportunity that came about because I made a decision to seek out being elected to Congress. Now, since I've been elected, many more women have come into Congress. We now represent about 19% of all of the Congress. That's in the House of Representatives and the Senate. There are 84 of us on the House side. There's 20 on the Senate side. And we in Massachusetts are making real strides. So we've elected a United States Senator, the first from Massachusetts, and Senator Warren. We've elected another woman to Congress, replacing, as a seat opened up, she ran, actually 2 women ran in that seat. She was for that seat and she was victorious. So at the federal level, our numbers are improving. And at the state side of things this year, for those of you who might have followed the election, we elected a woman to state treasurer. We re-elected a woman to state auditor. We elected an attorney general who was a woman replacing a woman. And we re-elected a woman as lieutenant governor. That's a lot of change in a very short time. And it's 2 things. Women can't win if women don't run. So we have to make the decision to run. And once women do run, women win. So that's not dissimilar from what's important about all of you here who might have an interest in STEM. That as you express your interest and you make decisions that lead you into these fields, you will change the organizations in which you are participating. And as you change them, ever more women will come into them. So that's important, number one. Number 2 is, as a country, we cannot survive without the beneficiary of all our great minds. And all of you in this room today reflect that opportunity this country has. And we need you, and we need your minds to be part of the challenge we have in a quickly changing, constant, very dynamic world. So I'm so glad all of you are here today. I know you're going to have fun trying to solve a problem. You're at tables where you may not know each other, but you'll certainly get to know each other in the course of your talking with each other. And I know you're going to have a lot of fun. Just to let you know, at the federal level, one of the things that we are constantly putting money into is the money that invests in research and development, so that we as a country are supporting the efforts of the private world, of the companies like Red Hat and all the others, because we understand that new ideas are the key to our future, and that the federal government cannot stand on the sidelines. And it's something that I have become very interested in, recognizing that it's part of the tradition of Massachusetts and that we often lead the way in so many instances. But that means we will continue to create and help support all the jobs of the future that are rooted in the STEM field, and hopefully ones that you all will make your ways into as you move on in your lives. So I want to thank you all for being here.
You have, to close it out, you have one certificate, Maureen, the Gaelic spelling.
All right, so I'm going to have to go, and I know you all have things to do, but before I go, I'm going to present a certificate of special congressional recognition. This is something that we can do in Congress, to Maureen Duffy, a senior interaction designer here at Red Hat, in recognition of her dedicated service to the GirlChallenge and for her commitment to empowering the future generations of women. So Maureen.